Hi, this is Dotty Armstrong again. Today I am going to read some poetry that when I think about it, I think of it as having a sort of a spiritual bent. Um, some of these poems I wrote, and some of these are some of my favorites from other people. But I'd like to start us off with a little prayer. Um, God, please help the people on Zoom and the people in St. Paul's Church get what they need today from these poems, whether it's a bit of calmness or inspiration or maybe entertainment. So, the first poem I'm going to read is a poem that those of you who take the New York Times may know already. This poem, called Small Kindnesses, was in the New York Times, and it inspired a program of for teenagers to write their favorite lines of regarding small kindnesses. And 1,300 teenagers did that. And I'm going to read the poem now that inspired all that action by teenagers. And it is by Danusha Lamaris. And here it is. Small Kindnesses. I've been thinking about the way when you walk down a crowded aisle, people pull in their legs to let you by. Or how strangers still say, bless you, when someone sneezes, a leftover from the bubonic plague. Don't die, we are saying. And sometimes when you spill lemons from your grocery bag, someone else will help you pick them up. Mostly, we don't want to harm each other. We want to be handed our cup of coffee hot and to say thank you to the person handing it, to smile at them and for them to smile back, for the waitress to call us honey when she sets down the bowl of clam chowder, and for the driver in the red pickup truck to let us pass. We have so little of each other now, so far from tribe and fire, only these brief moments of exchange. What if they are the true dwelling of the holy, these fleeting temples we make together when we say, here, have my seat. Go ahead, you first. I like your hat. Thank you. So the next poem I'm going to read is one of my poems, and it's a little poem that is kind of like a prayer, I would say. So here it is. It's called Hanging Out the Sheets. What is it about stretching your arms up to clip the wet ones on the line? It's a kind of prayer, I think, to offer up that which you are swaddled in during each holy night of sleep. Or sometimes you lie on your back or on top and lose yourself in another. Are you ever closer to God than that? So here they are, my flags of surrender, flapping in the wind, soaking up the sun, from me to you. Amen. This next poem is also a poem of mine, and some of you have heard it before. I'm a person who loves to travel, and all my siblings love to travel also. And we had a pretty tough childhood, all of us. And so this is a poem that to me feels like a sort of resurrection for two women who did not have a great childhood. Anyway, it is called The Grown Up Sisters Ride the Empire Builder. The table sleeps in its own pocket, opens between us like a butterfly. There is a map hidden in the middle of a magazine where at any moment in time we can find our spot. The svelte closet is just big enough to hold our two jackets. We sit facing each other, spreading our fingers to show the extra room beside our hips. When the porter asks, "When shall I make up your beds?" we try to act like we do this every day. My sister rises. Her beautiful hands close the door on the world. Her hands are twins of mine. They are a rare, uncomplicated legacy from our dead mother. Of course, like all strong statements, this one's not quite true. Only in coma did mother's hands rest easy on the blanket bindings. In life, every reach seemed to quiver her fingers with tension. But not now. My sister nests herself in her seat, and we move silently and smoothly forward. In the dining car, we play a game of naming wildflowers. I toast my sister with Scotch broom. "Shasta daisy," she says, motioning out the window where hillsides sparkle white. We explore the basket of rolls and the little packages of everything. A twinkling man joins us, the age of our dead father. Only this one makes us laugh. He shines his smile all over the table, shows us a photo of his family as if it is a treasure. "Alpine gold," I whisper in my sister's ear. There is a shower where actual water sprinkles down my back. I can feel the rhythm of the tracks under my feet as we race through the Columbia Gorge. I like walking through the car in my pajamas. Back in our miniature room, wrapped candies sit on our pillows. We eat them, even though we have just brushed our teeth. We crawl into the bunks that will rock us into Idaho. The last word my sister says to me is foxglove. Now I'm going to read some poems that I wrote when I first began my relationship with Vera. And the first one is called "Counting Bluebirds for Audubon." And first I'll tell you a little bit about the bluebirds in Yakima and Natchez. About 25 years ago, well, it's probably 30 years ago now, the bluebirds were leaving the Weenass Valley due to encroaching of their habitat by people. And Audubon stepped in and installed 132 bluebird boxes for them to nest in and have their babies in. Each spring, members of Audubon sign up to count adults, eggs, and hatchlings in the boxes so we can keep track of what's happening. And essentially, the bluebirds have come back to the valley. So Vera and I, for a number of years, have done this. Counting bluebirds for Audubon. We leave in the morning cool, armed with clipboards, sun hats, and the childhood buzz that accompanies a search for treasure. I never thought I would find love this late in life, much less easy love. But here we are, laughing, graying, and ultimately fading together. In the Weenass Valley, where the formerly brown hills explode balsam root suns, we hear wicka, wicka, wicka. And when we look up, a northern flicker twirls, shows us his white rump and his jazzy leopard wings. We turn to the side of the road for the sky blue roofs of the boxes. I knock softly on the side of the first to give warning, a chance to escape. You lift the roof. She's here, wide-eyed, frightened, but doing her job. The shawl of her azure wings shelters 5 aqua eggs. the size of dimes. We record the data, but with such silly smiles, you would think we have laid these eggs ourselves. Just outside our door, we have a lovely apricot tree that usually blooms every year, but for some reason, with our long winter, it did not do that this year. But this is a year where it did, in the early days of my relationship with Vera. Apricots, any kind of moon will make them glow. We sit in the dark, close together, not talking, watch them on the tree. Your splayed hand rests on top of mine. I pretend the gold light is anointing us. You have to pick them in the morning when it's cool, nest them in a box, one layer only. You have to be careful with things you love. We have an enormous walnut tree, and this is a poem about Vera and I, about walnuts, cracking walnuts. You want to pick them up before the rains come. Lay them in a single layer in a flat box until they are light and dry in your hands. Cozied up on the sofa, together we crack them, not even touching each other, partnered by the task in our hands. Even with a good nutcracker, it takes a long time to fill a bowl. It took a long time for me to let you love me in your quiet way. I was always looking for some other tree to lean on. New to me how kindness was the heart of the matter. Now our giant pile of walnuts is ready for toasting, for sugar and a little salt. As they rest after roasting on cookie sheets, we grab a couple and pronounce, yes, yes, they are good this year. And here's the last Dotty and Vera poem. And this one is called, well, let me say first, one way that Vera and I are really different is that Vera comes from a scientific stance, and I come from an artistic stance. And sometimes these qualities are wonderful, and sometimes they are something we have to work on. But this is a poem called Vera Gives Me the Sky. Who doesn't love an inky sky blasted with stars? But until our nightly walks each August, I did not see showers of shooting stars, Jupiter's moons, or the harvest moon bulging through gauzy clouds. I wanted to tell my story, and you interrupted me, slid your arm around my shoulders, swept your other arm up to show me the moon. I must admit, exchanging stars and planets for words was a new thing. And when you set up the scope so I could see Jupiter and 3 of his bright moons, truly there was nothing to say. But of course, I did speak, excited as a child. Later, when we hold hands, the infinite sky enfolds us, and I give you the gift of silence. So those are some Vera poems. And a favorite poet of mine and a favorite poet of many people is Mary Oliver, who died in the last couple of years. She, her poetry is often about the beloved aspects of nature. And there's a poem that actually Carrie read a couple of weeks ago, but I'd like to read it again. I've even been asked to read this poem at a memorial for someone whose favorite poem this was. But I'm going to read this now, and some of you know it already, I'm sure, but it's just a lovely poem. It's called Wild Geese. Wild geese. You do not have to be good. You do not have to walk on your knees for 100 miles through the desert repenting. You only have to let the soft animal of your body love what it loves. Tell me about despair, yours, and I will tell you mine. Meanwhile, the world goes on. Meanwhile, the sun and the clear pebbles of rain are moving across the landscapes, over the prairies and the deep trees, the mountains and the rivers. Meanwhile, the wild geese, high in the clean blue air, are heading home again. Whoever you are, no matter how lonely, the world offers itself to your imagination, calls to you like the wild geese, harsh and exciting, over and over announcing your place in the family of things. And there's something about that poem, especially when they say, tell me about, when she says, tell me about despair, yours, and I will tell you mine. That makes me think of St. Paul's, because it is a safe place to talk about all the hard things. Another favorite poet of mine is Billy Collins. He's had a million awards. He was the poet laureate of the United States. And I would like to read a poem that he wrote. And this is called Sunday Morning with the Sensational Nightingales. It was not the 5 Mississippi blind boys who lifted me off the ground that Sunday morning as I drove down for the paper, some oranges and bread. Nor was it the Dixie hummingbirds or the soul stirrers, despite their quickening name, or even the swan silvertones who inspired me to look over the commotion of trees into the open vault of the sky. No, it was the sensational nightingales who happened to be singing on the gospel station early that Sunday morning and must be credited with the bumping up of my spirit, the arousal of the mice within. I have always loved this harmony, like 4, sometimes 5 trains running side by side over a contoured landscape. Make that a shimmering red dirt landscape. Wildflowers growing along silver tracks, lace tablecloths covering the hills, the men and women in white shirts and dresses walking in the direction of a tall steeple. Sunday morning in a perfect Georgia. But I am not here to describe the sound of the falsetto whine, the sepulchral bass, alto, and tenor fitted snugly in between, only to witness my own minor ascension that morning as they sang, so parallel, about the usual themes: the garden of suffering, the beads of blood on the forehead, the stone before the hillside tomb, and the ancient rolling waters we would all have to cross someday. God bless the sensational nightingales, I thought as I turned up the volume. God bless their families, their powder blue suits. They are a far cry. They are a far cry from the quiet kneeling I was raised with, a far hand clapping cry from the candles that glowed in the alcoves and the fixed eyes of saints staring down from their corners. Oh, my cap was on straight that Sunday morning, and I was fine keeping the car on the road. No one would ever have guessed I was being lifted into the air by nightingales, hoisted by their beaks like a long banner that curls across an empty sky, caught up in the annunciation of these high, most encouraging tidings. Now I'm gonna, let's see, this is the second to the last poem that I'm gonna be reading. And I wanted to read a poem that I like that's humorous, because these are all kind of serious poems. And this is a real favorite poem of mine also. And Billy Collins is known for how he uses humor in his poems. And some critics, although he was poet laureate and won so many prizes, some critics do not care for his poems because they think they are too accessible to just a regular person. But that is exactly why I love Billy Collins. He is extremely talented, and yet you don't have to have any special training or college degrees to understand his poems. And the common person is my favorite person to write for. So anyway, this one is called Another Reason Why I Don't Keep a Gun in the House. The neighbor's dog will not stop barking. He is barking the same high rhythmic bark that he barks every time they leave the house. They must switch him on their way out. The neighbor's dog will not stop barking. I close all the windows in the house and put on a Beethoven symphony full blast, but I can still hear him muffled under the music, barking, barking, barking. And now I can see him sitting in the orchestra, his head raised confidently, as if Beethoven had included a part for a barking dog. When the record finally ends, he is still barking, sitting there in the oboe section, barking, his eyes fixed on the conductor, who is entreating him with his baton, while the other musicians listen in respectful silence to the famous barking dog solo, that endless coda that first established Beethoven as an innovative genius. Hope you like that one. And now, well, let's see. First, I will tell you that about more than 30 years ago, I had a cabin up on the Skycomish River. Some of you actually have been there. Mary Lou has been there, I know. And it was right on the river. And I had an experience when I was watching the salmon return to where they were born, and lay their eggs and then die. I had an experience watching the salmon come up the river. And it was such a full experience. I tried a couple times to write about it, but I couldn't even do it. But, and that was 30 plus years ago. And then last year, the woman who was a poet laureate for Washington State put out a call to, she put out a call for poems about salmon. She's a Native woman, and it's called I Sing the Salmon Home. And she was going to choose the poems that she liked best and put them in this book. So this book has now been published and is available at bookstores. And lo and behold, I had a poem selected to be in it. And nothing could make a poet happier, I'm telling you. So anyway, this book, the poem in this book is called Communion. Shore to shore, the Skycomish is awash with salmon, charging toward home. I settle on the bank, eyeing a large one in the shallows close to me. She is red and ragged. She is not digging her nest. She is not turning on her side, flapping her tail to smooth the gravel. She is not rolling out her eggs in all directions. She is as quiet as a night with no wind. She is resting from her pilgrimage, which has torn her up. It is enough that I can join with her in rest. Thank you.